We are off to pick up the car, maybe? There's still some issues, I guess, with it. It's leaking fluid. Let's figure out what the heck's going on there. Hey, I'm cutting in real quick to remind you, this is actually episode 3 in this series. And where we last left off was I took the Firebird to a mechanic because I had to give up. I couldn't figure out how to get this thing started. And if you're new here, consider subscribing and following this journey of me resurrecting and restoring this 1989 Pontiac Firebird that actually belonged to my grandfather. He bought it new in '89. And here's the thing, I took this car in April. Yeah, and it is now June 14th. I'll let you do the math on how long it took them to get this car back to me. But spoiler alert, this didn't go well. And they mentioned I could possibly even work off some of the bill, like maybe for a paint job or something in the future, do some sort of marketing, videos, commercials and stuff for them. So let's head over there and see what the damage is. I don't know how I'm gonna get this back to my parents, to be honest. The car hasn't been driven on the road in probably 7 years. Correction, in fact, it was 9 years. Easily. They won't drive it on the road because of how long it's been sitting. Pretty much what they told me that is the reason why they haven't is because of the brakes. They don't trust it because they don't know. They want to risk it, which I get. That's fine. So this will be an adventure. Let's find out what happens. You guys get to come along with me. Hopefully we don't die. This mechanic, not so great. In fact, you'll notice throughout these conversations that I have with them, the sales guy, he's a sales guy. He's doing his thing. He's in his zone. He's being salesy. But once we meet the mechanic himself, he was pretty aggressive. And truth be told, neither one of them actually knew anything about what was really going on. They're kind of just speaking out their ass, just to be blunt. And I have no problem with somebody not knowing something if they don't know how to do it. That's fine. They're a mechanic, they're supposed to know, but that doesn't mean they know everything. But they should listen to some of the things I am telling them that I know about what's wrong with it. They're pretty much completely dismissing it and thinking I don't know anything. And sure, I probably don't know as much as they do, but in this instance with this car, I actually know a little bit more than they do. So it was really frustrating that they weren't listening to me. But I'm jumping ahead a little bit and you'll find out what I'm talking about right now. Okay, we are here. I mean, I already know the bill. Real expensive. It was $3,000, by the way. It's exactly my full budget, which was not what I expected. So hopefully I can work some of this off. Let's see what we can do.
Then once you got it driving, if you want to bring it back, then we can take it for test drives. We can do, kind of the runability stuff, and then tinkering with the engine from there.
Yeah, okay. But you said that like, the engine was running semi-okay.
Yeah,
or running good?
We can go start it up real quick here.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll let you do the honors.
I haven't started this in a long time.
Yeah.
Don't get too excited. Nothing. So this is what's actually happening with the car and why it won't start. The sales guy and mechanic would not listen to me as to when I'm talking about VATS. Still won't start. It has one crucial issue, and that is you turn the key, nothing happens, and you're locked out for 10 minutes. Yeah, after that, you can start the car. Super annoying, I gotta tell you. It's an anti-theft system. And back in like probably 2010 or so, I had to replace the ignition cylinder. It broke. It, in fact, got stuck in the on position. I could not turn the car off. So for like a few months, I had to turn the car off by disconnecting the battery. And eventually I changed out the cylinder and boy, I gotta tell you, it was not easy. There's not a lot of room inside the column to be able to rewire up the anti-theft system, AKA VATS. And I probably didn't do a great job at wiring it up because I was just a kid. It's kind of a safety issue. If the car randomly decides to turn off while I'm driving down the freeway doing 60 miles an hour, and I try to turn the car on and it just so happens it doesn't want to start that time, could cause an accident. This car hasn't been on the road in 9 years, so it's a strong possibility of that happening. So I really wanted them to try and completely either bypass it or fix it. And so I told them this multiple times, and they just straight up ignored it. Well, the other one was replaced. So the newer looking key is the right one. Yeah. You see, I even am trying to explain to them that the cylinder has been replaced, and they're not listening.
Well, they're both the right key, it's just the thing's different.
Were both of them working though?
Yeah.
They're saying both of those keys started the vehicle. I know that's a complete lie because I've changed the cylinder, which means you have to change the key. It's a different key. It doesn't fit in there. It won't start the car. They should know this because 1 month prior, I called them to check in on the status of the car because I haven't heard from them in a long time. They told me they couldn't get the car started still, and they still were diagnosing and trying to figure out why they couldn't get it running. And so I brought up VATS again, and they said, okay, why don't you bring in the original key and we'll look into getting this fixed. All right, headed to the mechanic. They still can't get the car started. And I think I know what the problem is. So I'm headed over there to give them the old key as like a security lock. And so this way they can match it to make a new key. Little did I know this was gonna be a complete waste of time. They never even attempted getting the VATS system fixed. Now it does have the same quote unquote chip, AKA a resistor. So that would connect the circuit and able to start the car, but that key doesn't actually fit into the column. See, he's straight up lying. I only brought the key back to him because they wanted to eliminate the possibility of it being the VATS system, which I thought that meant they were fixing it. Out of curiosity, did you open the back at all?
I don't believe that we did.
Okay, good.
You're talking about the trunk?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I didn't know if the seal had been broken. I was afraid to open it.
Oh, no. I don't
Yes,
think we've opened
until
the
I
trunk.
can-
Oh, does the whole glass come up and everything?
Yeah, it's half
Oh, okay.
back, so-
Gotcha.
I asked if the back had been opened because I was worried that that seal, once broken, would cause a leak because it hasn't been opened in 9 years. So how it works is when you pop the trunk, a little motor comes up. And when you're closing the big glass door, since it's so huge, had a system put in so you're not slamming it down and potentially cracking the glass. You bring the hatch down just to the motor, just gently, and it grabs it and it pulls it down. And it reseals the whole back window. Now, that car hasn't worked in 9 years, like I've said multiple times at this point, and I didn't know if the motor worked. And once you pop that trunk, and if the motor doesn't work, you can't close the back hatch. And so I had told them at the beginning, which I didn't get it on camera, don't open the back. And I wasn't ready to replace the back motor if I didn't have to at that time. So that's why I was asking about it.
We didn't do a starter or anything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We did put a starter in it?
Yeah. Goes under the hood. He thinks that it's a bad battery, even though it was just replaced, brand new. Had the receipts to show him. But he was trying to say something was wrong with the wiring, that they're gonna have to go in and do it. I'm like, no. They had just listened to me at the very beginning and remembered that if the car no go and had been going, it's the security system. It doesn't matter how many times you try to crank the car over or slam my clutch basically through the floorboards.
You're not gonna get it started that way.
Well, that was anticlimactic.
And then for some reason, the mechanic just was super aggressive with me. He wasn't talking with me, he was just talking at me.
I wouldn't drive it home.
Yeah.
Because that freeze plug blows out and you'll lose all your coolant.
It wasn't actually leaking anything. There was just a potential the freeze plugs could go bad, which is fine. I just told them to fix it. Well, what would be to have that replaced anyway? But they didn't. I had to tell them again to fix it.
And in the meantime, we'll try and figure out what's wrong with it now and we'll go from there.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Sorry you couldn't pick it up today.
Okay. As you may notice, I am not in my car. Well, I'm in my car. I'm just not in the correct car that I should be in at the moment, which is Firebird. And that is because it wouldn't start. Story continues. So they ended up keeping the car for another month. And they said they fixed it. They in fact did not fix it. It just happened to start because the VATS system was working that day. Stay tuned in a future episode on VATS. I have a whole video coming on that. How's it going?
How's it going?
Good.
You're picking up, right?
Yep, Firebird, as long as it starts.
Cross your fingers. It started every time I've gone out there so far, so.
I freaking believe it. It drives. It is. Can you see like a breakdown? You see what was done to it? It's been over 5 months since I've had the work done, and I wanted to make sure I knew what was done to this thing.
So, kind of going down from the top, we did the ignition coil, the spark plug, and the wires, as well as a new serpentine belt. Did a starter, distributor, then we did the fuel pump, the fuel filter, and a gas tank.
Freeze plugs.
That's this one.
Oh, that's this one.
Yeah, I
Okay,
just did it
got
on a separate one. It looks like you provided an alternator, so we installed that.
Funny thing about the alternator is that it's not new. I didn't buy it, and they didn't buy it. It's the same alternator that's been in the car for the past 15, 20 years easily. And if you remember, originally I took the car in because I thought it was just the ignition coil that needed to be replaced. And I just didn't have the capabilities or the right tools to get it out. So I had moved the alternator out of the way, which you had to do to get to that part. Well, I didn't move the alternator back into place before I took it to them. Figured, why? Because they're gonna have to take it apart themselves. So they charged me for the replacement of the part as well as the labor for doing the ignition coil, as well as charging me the reinstallation of the alternator. And please, correct me if I'm wrong in thinking this. I don't feel like I should have been charged for this. And I just feel like really tells you about the mechanic. Because I've been to other mechanics, like my regular, which I wish I was able to take to and have them do the work. In the past, I've taken cars in and not knowing what's wrong with it, and they come back and say, oh, it's just a spark plug. I'm like, okay, what's the damage? They're like, no cost, nothing. Can I at least pay for the part? And like, no, we had it laying around, no big deal. That's a good mechanic. That's Bill's great reputation. The alternator is one of the easiest things to replace on this Firebird. It's right up front. It's like 2 or 3 bolts and it's out of the way. It's ridiculously simple. And remember, it's been over 5 months to get them to do the work and give me my car back. And $3,000 later, and they're gonna nickel and dime me? If I'd caught it sooner, I probably would have fought it right then and there, but I just wasn't thinking. I was thinking of all the other stuff and looking at the total cost. I don't know. Am I wrong here? Let me know in the comments. Let's see if we can get this thing started. All right. Oh my gosh. Let's see if this will start. Moment of truth. Wow, it started.
You know, I'm about 32% done with my restoration.
Now the journey of getting home. I gotta tell you, luckily I wasn't going very far because it was a rough go. But man, did it make it. Now it's on to getting some of these other things fixed, brakes, clutch, all the fluids, get this thing freaking power washed. And then of course, a million other things. Oh, and remember in the previous episode when me and my dad had the car turning over and it wasn't starting? Well, we had fixed it. 2 years later, so basically right now, a couple weeks ago, I found out what was wrong with it because it did that again, randomly. Turns out it was just a freaking fuse. It wasn't blown. I pulled it and just corrosion just came off of it. Got a new one, popped it in, and it started just fine. Technically, we did fix it. It was never the ignition coil. And I never technically had to bring it to the mechanic. There's so much freaking stuff I'd done to this car. But my time with that mechanic hadn't come to an end. There's a crazy story about the fuel tank that involved, honestly, a shouting match with the mechanic 2 months later. But that's a story for another time.